Welcome to Music City Horror. I am your host, Eli Phipps. I have four co-hosts with me. The lovely Kayla Babcock, Kayla Lindsay, Lena Stewart Harrington, and Scott Karen. So the show, we are going to meet weekly, hopefully, and just talk about everything horror related. So, review of movies, review of TV shows. Sometimes we'll just talk about classic movies that we liked growing up. Could be about haunted houses. I mean, there's really no limits. It's just anything kind of horror related. And the title obviously comes from, we're in the Nashville area, so very appropriate. So for this first episode, we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about what we like about horror, what, maybe our earliest memories of horror were, and kind of go from there. So I think up first is Kayla Babcock, who is going to go by KB for the convenience of the show.
Right, because it's not confusing enough to have Kayla's. So what was it that I had, how I got into horror and shit like that?
Yeah,
I'm already
kind of
cursing.
You were the first one to swear.
Yeah, swear jar.
Right?
Introduce yourself and a little bit about you, and then, kind of either like your earliest memory of horror or like what kind of got you into horror, as a genre.
Okay, sweet.
There you go.
And we lost you.
Yeah, it's you.
Short and simple. Really? Did it already cut out?
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm. What's up? I'm the dog mom of the group, and I'm a makeup artist during the day. Mostly, I just like to hang out with dogs at night. Very interesting. So my introduction for horror is actually kind of messed up. So as a kid, my mom and I would always go to the local, not Blockbuster, like the family-owned Blockbuster. And this guy that worked there, the guy that owned it, was a total dick. To actually steer me into the horror section because he knew I would start crying.
Oh, no.
So after about 5 years of that, I got old enough to not be scared anymore, and I actually started watching the movies. So I think at one point I got enough and sassy enough as probably like a 10-year-old child to mouth off to this guy because I started watching horror movies. So it took a lot of traumatizing to get me really into not being a piss baby about horror movies because I was super afraid of Chucky. It was just a culmination of my love for Halloween and finally having a pair of kids I've ever done because horror is so much fun. And I don't know. I went from just kind of trying to desensitize myself as a 13-year-old. What a way to grow up. What a way to grow up.
I mean, it sounds like the American dream,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So now I watch as much as I can unless it involves bugs. If we ever have a bug episode, you can count me out.
Yeah.
I will take a sabbatical day.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, we went to, the movie that we were talking about earlier, they showed Creepshow 2, and there's that scene, with the white apartment, and he's like, nope, can't handle it. And he left.
Nope. Nope. I don't,
Amazing.
I can handle just about anything when it comes to horror movies, unless it's bugs.
Yeah. Even the part in, like,
It's just
the Temple of Doom with all the
that's my
bugs and
threshold.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Can't
yeah. I mean, I can handle, like, scarab bettles.
Oh, like the Mummy.
From, like, the Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Brendan Fraser,
But that-
of course.
But that's about it for me. That's about it for me. So
Awesome.
now I love it.
Nice. Well, that was a pretty good first story.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
All right. So now I think we're going to go over to Miss Elena Stewart Harrington.
Yes. So what got me into horror was my parents, believe it or not. So my dad was super into classic horror. He was more into like the Dracula and Frankenstein
Yes.
and Wolfman, and my personal favorite, The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes.
So when I was a child and we had a swimming pool, we had a little sign by the pool that said, "Welcome to our ool." Notice there's no pee in it.
Nice.
And it had a picture of the creature on it. So that was kind of like my first.
Nice.
So cute. Yeah, like, it's awesome. And also, so my mom, she loves horror. She loves sci-fi. She also loves Stephen King. All Stephen King movies, books, everything. And she just told me this the other day that she read it for the first time when she was pregnant with me.
Nice.
So now, like, my whole 32 years of
Wow.
life makes so much more sense now. But I've always loved Halloween, and growing up, like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, I've got all the Are You Afraid of the Darks on DVD, bootleg versions, of course.
I was about to say, I need that. How did you get that?
Bootleg. Also, like, progressing into high school and college, like AMC when they did their Fear Fest, which I feel like,
Yes.
Early 2000s, like Fear Fest stuff was the bomb.
Yeah. They're
and
only
maybe
doing it
just
for like
now.
a week this year. It's pretty
Oh,
bomb.
no, I hate that. Well, like back in the day, on Friday the 13th, they would show it all day long. And
Yeah,
so I'd watch that. And yeah, loved that. But another thing I wanted to touch on was, like, have y'all read the Stephen King's, his little essay on why we crave horror movies?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think I saw it, but I didn't read it.
It's just about how, like, you've got the alligators in your brain and how like horror movies are like feeding the alligators and you want to keep the alligators fed. So I feel like that's part of it too.
Well, he's a smart guy. So.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to go to Scott now. Mr. Scott Kieran.
Hey. Okay. Well, I don't know if I really just gravitated towards horror movies. I'm just sort of a horror, paranormal, dark kind of lover, whether it's books or anything, but I love horror movies. I think it kind of started, and I'm going to try to keep this short, but as Eli asked me to start thinking of what got me into it, I was like, I don't really remember what first horror movie I saw, but I've always liked being scared. And the first thing I can remember being scared of is I grew up in a town in western Pennsylvania, and there was coal mines that literally were strewn underneath our towns. And I lived on top of a hill, and there was this makeshift sort of, we called them the stairs going down to the lower section of the town, and you had to walk through these woods and everything. And there was this one creepy house that, as far as I can remember, was abandoned right in the middle of these steps. And right outside that was an old rescue shaft for one of the mines. And it was this old doorway that just kind of went into nowhere and always creeped the bejeebus out of me. So every time I go by that, I'd run. And then once you get past that sort of rescue hatch, there'd be this old house, and then you'd run even faster. And it's that adrenaline rush just sort of stuck with me. And I loved just like scaring myself, I guess. And ironically enough, it was that mine system. There was one of the entrances to it. We had this, what was called Torred Mine. And it was a actual operating mine back in the day, but then became you could go through it, you could see how they coal mined and everything, and became the location for the remake of My Bloody Valentine. So
I was about to say, it kind of had
So
a
fun.
Valentine vibe. Yeah.
So we actually ran a haunted house in that mine using a lot of their equipment and sets and stuff they left. And my buddy to this day still works for, he got his foot in the door with the film laborers, the union guys that build the sets and everything when they were in town. He still works with them. And so I guess through all of that in this long roundabout way, I ended up just sort of immersing myself in this horror lifestyle. And I'm not really much of the classic horror as much as the realistic horror. Like, I love the horror of like the human mind and the psychological thrillers. So I think listening so far, I think we're gonna be a pretty cool group because we all seem to have our different sort of niches we like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of sort of me in a nutshell. And we're really looking forward to, getting to know you guys and talking about some creepy stuff.
Yeah. You also have a magnificent beard. Don't forget that.
Yes, yes, you do.
Very true. Yeah.
You both do.
I feel I'm one of those, like, mine gets put to shame when I'm in the room with Scott. He walks out looking like a Viking, and I'm like, well, cool. Well, so that's Scott. And then we're going to go to the second Kayla, Miss Kayla Lindsay.
Kayla too. Hi. Yeah, I'm a creepy librarian. I actually am a librarian.
All librarians.
All the other librarians, whenever a kid's like, I like scary stuff, they say, "Oh, go see Miss Lindsay. She knows exactly where to send you." So I'm like, "Oh yeah."
That's like the biggest compliment I've ever heard.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's so fun. And I think I got into horror with the same entry points as a lot of people probably around our age, with the Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and kind of stuff that Lana mentioned earlier. And I've always been drawn to the darker stuff, and I really like Supernatural as kind of my favorite kind of jam with horror. I always like ghosts and vampires and possessions and creepy stuff, cults, all that. But I think my really big moment was actually when they started marketing The Ring, like the remake of it, and because I was obsessed with MTV, of course, as a teenager.
Man.
And they marketed it so well, and it was just like unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Just like the girl with the wet hair in her face, and it was so blue and gray, and it was just so different from anything that I'd ever seen before. And I was just really terrified by it, but also really attracted to it. I just wanted to learn more about this kind of thing that I'd never really seen before. And about the same time, too, we started getting decent internet access in East Tennessee. And so I was able to research horror movies and find out a little bit more about the genre and find different movies that I should watch. And I think it's just a combination of the right time, the right age. I was starting to get smart enough to be like, oh, the same kind of analysis that I'm doing in English class with my teachers on books, I can also do that with movies too. Like that's more fun. And so I was able to kind of look at it in a different way and look a little bit deeper into something that people always just kind of think is something silly and goofy and not serious. And, you know, sometimes it is, and it's really fun. And sometimes you can dig a little deeper and learn a lot from it and look at our own fears in society in a different new way. And I think The Ring really brought that out in me, which is kind of maybe unusual, but yeah, I still get creeped up thinking about
That's awesome.
No, wait,
it's
it's not.
Like,
It's
no,
actually
she's
not
scary.
unusual at all. It's not unusual because I felt like The Ring was kind of a big gateway movie for me too. And I don't know if it's just started like because we were like born at similar times, so we were like at that right age to really finally experience a horror movie in the theater. Because like if you were under 18, you couldn't go. And I remember,
it's like my parents had to drive me. You know?
right? Like I remember sneaking into Texas Chainsaw Massacre with my friends. That's a whole other story. But you know, I remember seeing The Ring in the theater, and I was able to get in. I think maybe it was like 17, maybe not 18, but I think it was like you had to be like 17. So that was kind of a gateway movie for me too. Like, I totally feel that. I felt like that was like really marked the time in my life that I could really actually go see a horror movie. And I didn't have to wait for it to come out on, you know, DVD. No, what did DVD exist back then? I don't know.
I think we just had video.
But yeah, no,
Like The Ring,
I definitely don't think that that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, my husband and I just watched that not too long ago. It's
so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is just so well made, and the acting's so good, and wow, this is just really cool.
Well, I think it's also like, and we'll probably touch on this on a future show, I hope, but you know, I think Scott mentioned it, but you know, there's so many types of horror. You know what I mean? I mean, you have something like Shaun of the Dead, which is kind of a comedy, and then you have, you know, one of the things that I've always been kind of obsessed with is how you have like the PG Halloween, and then you have the R-rated Halloween. You know, and or horror, I should say, both of those apply. You know, you have the wearing masks and trick or treating and pumpkins and everything's fine, and then you have the adult gory blood and all that kind of stuff, and it's just, they're on the same coin. It's just different sides, So I think that's a cool, like Scott said, we all kind of like different horror, so I think that's kind of a cool thing to touch on because there's so many different kinds of horror. Some people, there's even people now that are saying like It wasn't a horror movie, and Get Out wasn't a horror movie, and it's just like
whatever.
What the hardcore fans love, some of the topical are like, well, that's not really horror. Like, okay,
gives me an entire episode just on sci-fi horror.
Yes.
Sci-fi horror and exorcism horror, like that's where I shine. That's where I get like super passionate about it.
That's your bag. Got it. Cool. Well, okay. Well, welcome you four. Thank you for agreeing to do this crazy thing with me. For the people listening, we're all kind of strangers. Some of us know each other, but like we don't all know each other, and we just kind of threw invites out there, and everyone was pretty gung ho. So that's what we're doing. My name is Eli, and it was kind of my idea to get all this started. So luckily, I have the four picking up my slack. Mine is kind of a combination of what Scott said. I kind of my stepdad was like the king of scaring me. We had a scarecrow on our front porch for Halloween, and he came home early from work one day and dressed up in it. And my mom and my brother and I had come home, and we were about to open the door, and he jumped up, and literally it was white. My face like flashed before my eye, like just, and it was more like I thought my mom was in danger, and an hour of shaking, crying, like no joke. And then about a year before that, for some reason, I had watched, my parents were watching Blackula. And I had walked in, and I've always liked like the old school stuff. Like Lena said, like I had one year I dressed up as Dracula, one year I dressed up as Wolfman, and had all this fake hair on my face. And I think I was a Phantom of the Opera one year. So I was Freddy. So I've always kind of liked that kind of stuff. So I was watching it, and my dad had put a dummy on the bed, and we had those. Do you remember those old school like the decorations of like Dracula's face, that you could put like tape on your wall and stuff. And he had one of those on the pillow and a candle beside it. So I just walked by it, and I'm like, oh my God. And he picks me up, and I'm like, there's scratches on the wall, and he throws me on the bed, and I like hit it and completely bounce right off. So it's kind of like Scott said, it's that whole like, it petrified me, but then I was like, cool, do it again, and then it was that whole like, you're not supposed to watch it, but like I was over at an older cousin's house, and he was watching Lost Boys and then left the room, so I just sat there and watched Lost Boys. So I think it's that kind of like that. It's that edge. It's like I think that's why horror and like metal and like punk and like all these quote unquote outside the norms. I think that's why they all kind of go hand in hand, because it's, maybe, a little dangerous, or you're not supposed to do it, or it's like subversive, or, any of that kind of stuff. So of course I wanted all of it that I could get. So, so, but yeah, that's been it from since then. We were talking about when the AMC, the Fear marathon. It used to be really awesome, and I loved watching that all the every Halloween, and even like in the 90s, like Up All Night on USA, and then Monster Vision with Billy Bob on USA.
Yes.
I watched so much. It was edited, of course, but so many awesome movies just on normal TV. So it just kind of added to it, from there. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess. So that's that. But so for this episode, we kind of just wanted to make introductions, and but we did want to at least talk a little bit about something. So the big thing in horror right now is the movie It. I think right now, I don't know if I was talking to Scott about it, but I think they said it officially is the highest grossing horror movie of all time. It just surpassed The Exorcist. So
It's amazing.
It's a blessing, is what it is.
yeah.
It's a blessing.
I was skeptical. I don't like a lot. Well, I'm okay. I'll go ahead and put this out there right now. I'm about as anti CG as you can get. Like I loathe CG movies. So when they redo all this stuff and it's not practical anymore, like I'm just out. I don't want anything to do with it. So, when they want to redo all of these classic movies and they fluff it with that stuff, I don't want anything to do with it. And so when they announced they were doing it and it was going to be R-rated, I was like, okay, that's fine. But, they changed directors, they bumped the schedules back. And so I really had a bad feeling about it. But, I mean, it was almost perfect. I mean, it was like really good,
so good.
But I think so the topic we were going to talk about is the quote-unquote resurgence of horror. And, how... to the horror, us, the people that watch it on the reg, horror doesn't really go away. You know what I mean? So, how do we segue into that? What's a good way to?
Well, I was thinking, what do y'all think is before this the best horror movie you've seen in theaters? Before that,
I did see the Witch when it came out. Much smaller.
Yeah.
But
that
was great. I didn't see that in theaters, but I loved it.
It was truly so excellent, and I was really excited because a lot more people were in the theater when I went than I expected there to be, which I think shows the power of social media, is that people, horror fans like us who are really into it, see that something like that's coming out the pipeline and, try to get our friends and family excited about it, and people that we might talk to on social media, and then just kind of spreads from there. And I feel like horror fans really want to see those kind of good quality movies succeed. So we really, really feel like work hard to support it and to get other people to support it too, because we know we'll get more good quality stuff if we support it with money. So I feel like that's a big part of it too.
And see, that's that's a good example though, because it's kind of you don't. Not every horror movie is going to do what it just did. You know what I mean? I mean, it's always profitable. And I mean, you look at, Paranormal Activity, I think it costs like $100,000 to make, and then it grossed like $500 million or something. I mean, yeah. So I mean, studios, they want to do horror flicks because it's super cheap. They can get no name actors, all that kind of stuff. But, it takes an event like it to like shatter box off records, and they say, well, horror's back. But then you have something like The Witch, or you have The Babadook, or you have even Get Out was a huge hit too. But
to be fair, The Babadook was Australian, so a lot of people didn't really know anything about it.
It also was directed by a female.
Until it got on Netflix. Right. Which is another conversation.
So that will be a topic in one of our other shows, because that badass female directed that one.
That's true.
But I mean, let's get real. We have went through a really, really long period of time where horror is shit. And I think that a lot of the remakes, they did the Freddy remake, all of the later franchise movies, they did mostly have CGI. Throwing back to where we were talking about CGI, and I feel like they started thinking more about quantity than quality. Which is a huge mistake.
Absolutely.
They stopped caring about the script. They started caring about how everybody looked and how the sets looked. Where
the body count.
You don't have to put a lot of money into it. Yeah. I mean, for real. I mean, we don't get these big blockbuster horror movies. Horror movies were up until the past couple of years, and there's a whole way of thinking out there that a lot of people got so accustomed to jump scares as horror to them.
Yes.
Not
loud
shit
noises.
That just I read this whole article about loud noises, unnecessary loud noises in horror movies, and about how that's where you would feel scared, so you would come out of the theater satisfied, but you're not really scared. You just got startled.
Yeah, it's like the haunted house. Like it's it's 4 minutes and then boom, But yeah, I think it's I mean, it's, going back to Kayla's question, or no, Lana's question. I mean, I saw Get Out, and I would consider Split a horror movie, to be honest with you. I mean, it was,
Sure.
it was,
Oh,
it was
absolutely.
scary,
That was scary.
I mean,
but yeah,
definitely psychological horror.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And James McAvoy was unbelievable. That if he's not nominated for some awards next year, I mean,
that movie was something else.
yeah. But there was a time when especially like the 80s into the 90s, where you would get a really big budget horror movie. I mean, even if people didn't watch, like Wes Craven's Wishmaster. I don't think I've ever seen that at all, but that was like a big movie in the middle 90s, and
Sure.
So now, to get something like It, which is obviously a little bit bigger budget, and it to do what it did, but yeah, it's kind of, I think what KB was saying, like, a lot of the movies, I mean, it might have stopped around, 2004, since then, they all kind of have the same, dark, lens tone, and they all have the low, deep music that's creepy, and just, it's all kind of like a paint by numbers. It's kind of the same thing. And, when you have something like, Devil's Rejects, which is definitely like a throwback and kind of sleazy, and, it's different, it's not doing what everything else is doing. And that's why, like, the slasher movies were such a big hit, because they weren't like anything that was going on right at that point. So, Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy, they were all different, and that's why they became, kind of like screen legends and all that kind of stuff. So it's always weird when you see the, kind of like once the slasher thing hit, you start having all the copycats, and then once Scream hit, you start having all the copycats, and then even The Ring a little bit, because like The Grudge was not the same but similar, Japanese.
Yeah.
Horror always comes in waves.
Yes,
to me.
Right.
Yeah.
It always comes in waves, and it helped that this particular movie already kind of had a following.
Oh yeah.
Because of the book, and because of the fact that it's Stephen King, which we'll do a whole episode on. I'm so excited, because that means research. I haven't watched these movies in years.
Oh, so good.
But I've always the one Stephen King movie I always rewatched was It. I at least once or twice a year I would rewatch.
Me too.
It.
It scared me, even though it's kind of silly.
I remember when it came on. I've never had a fear of clowns. I've never had a fear of clowns, but I always loved Tim Curry. And I think
Tim Curry could be Donald Trump, and I would watch it. I mean, it doesn't matter.
100%. But I remember Stephen King being like near and dear to a lot of our generation.
Oh,
sure.
Let me interject this story, just because if I don't tell you, it'll drive me nuts. So when I was about 1, I got attacked by a dog. He bit me underneath my eye and ripped the skin down to my jaw, and I had to have plastic surgery. And
holy shit!
Yeah, it was a big thing. So of course, when I was 4, I watched Cujo. Scared me.
Of course.
So, it took a long time, and I mean that like to my core. Like, I mean, I couldn't be around dogs. Like, it was almost like they sensed it. Like, oh, he got chewed up. We're gonna, and so it took me probably 15 years before.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
But that was kind of going back to one of the earliest memories of horror. So sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think where it really, the newer version really benefited from was the first iteration was a TV miniseries.
Yeah.
So they couldn't show that horror that you can see on TV today. So it was really watered down, and they really got to, to multiply that and really make it a thing of nightmares with the new film. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. Do any of you have kids other than me? No? Okay, well, great. There's something with kids getting hurt that really just disturbs me. Not disturbs me. I mean, but it just sort of hits you in a different spot. And the scene where oh God, his name's slipping me right now. The
Georgie. Yeah.
Georgie gets his arm ripped off.
Georgie.
Sorry.
Spoilers.
It's pretty brutal.
So it happens, and I was just like, oh my God, just tugged at me. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, back when the first one came out, they couldn't even imagine doing this.
Oh no.
Yeah. That's exactly
It helped
right.
that kid, even though I've actually an aversion to children, it helped that kid was adorable.
Right.
Like,
So cute.
he was
Well, they did the bait and
disgustingly
switch,
adorable.
like they're in the bedroom, they're having the sweet brother thing, and like you don't
I
really.
watched
I
that movie so
know.
many times, and all I can
So
remember
sweet.
is him looking in the little drain pipe, and he goes, "Well, I
Right.
gotta get going now."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so sad.
It's so cute.
No,
It's
he
so-
was
And then
Bill's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
right.
But
Well, this-
I
This
that's
piggy.
where,
Oh, sorry. This piggybacks on that what Scott was just saying. And this will be another episode. So we keep exposing potential.
Right,
episodes,
right.
But I love Halloween 3. Like I mean, I might.
We won't hold that
it
against
might
you.
be my
That's right.
number 2, to be honest with you. But it's that same thing. Like they're killing kids. Like that's the whole point. Like that's
Right.
like, and that's such a. To me, that's so much more malicious than Michael Myers. He's like kind of the mindless
Right.
zombie killer, because like they're like, and it's like a maniacal plan. Like, hey, let's fuck with him on Halloween and kill him. Like that's it. Just and I watched it as an adult. I never saw it when I was a kid, and so kind of like what Scott was just saying, like just the fact that that's the target. Like they're killing kids on the reg. So. Yeah, I think that definitely added to the impact of it for sure.
Yeah.
But you look at, I mean, it's been said over and over again that there's no original content being generated these days. You look at all these shows that are coming back that are like, oh, let's bring back such and such, or let's do a remake of this. And yeah, exactly. And I think that's, I don't want to say those fail at that spot, but they don't get to kick it up that extra notch of killing kids.
Yeah.
But we've just gotten to that point
So
where
metal.
we can watch that now and handle that without people protesting outside. And I think that's pretty cool that they took it to that level of that crossing over that line of killing a kid, violently hurting a kid on screen. So
Yeah. Well, I think piggyback off and what Kayla was saying, there's always horror, and there are what I would say big budget horror, and then there's the art horror, kind of like The Witch or The Babadook, or I saw one about a month ago, the Transformation or the Transfiguration. It's like a vampire movie, but it's set in
Oh yeah, I watched that one a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, and I'd never even heard of it, but I looked at it and it won all these movie awards and whatever. So I think it's like Scott was saying, like it does come in waves, but it doesn't really, like the tide never goes away. You know what I mean? Like it's always there. You might have to go to like the independent movie theater to watch it and stuff like that. I watched Wolf Cop, which is just a comedy, but it's a cop that turns into a werewolf, and it's awesome.
Awesome.
love her name.
Yeah. The slogan was "Here comes the fuzz," so it was incredible.
That's incredible.
I'd watch it too.
Spot on.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray if anyone wants to borrow it. So,
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
but
Group night, movie night.
there we go. We could live tweet it while we watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think that's kind of the underlying thing, is that horror doesn't really go away, and it gets like, for example, like last year, when Stranger Things came on, that kind of brought Stephen King back into the light, even though he really didn't have anything to do with it, but there was undertones and they used that font. And then from there, he's kind of had a renaissance, some good, some bad. And, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. We just, wanted to touch on the big, huge success that was it. And, give our 2 cents about there's not really a quote unquote resurgence, because it didn't really go away. So,
I mean, I definitely think that horror has gotten better within at least the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
I agree. I feel like you have smaller studios coming up and streaming services like Shudder or even Netflix coming up with original content that are gathering up stuff that that they will like. Basically, they know like we can attract people to this, and social media really helps bring good stuff to the top. Like it kind of weeds out all the crappy stuff, and all the good stuff rises up to the top. And I'll plug real quick too. I saw the Babadook. Oh gosh, I think it was one of the first showings in the U.S. It was at the Belcourt. Does the 12 Hours of Terror here in Nashville. It's actually coming up in a few weeks, so if you get a chance to go, definitely go. It's so fun. And they showed it there, and everyone there was really excited, and I thought I was super cool being like I know about this movie that no one's heard of because it's from Australia. But everyone there was super excited to see it and like raring to go. And it didn't even hit Netflix for maybe like 2 more years or so.
Awesome.
But we, everyone who saw it loved it, and we were all talking about it on social media for so long. And then when it comes up on Netflix, I can force my parents to watch it. We've got all kinds of brand new ways to access stuff that otherwise we would have never been able to see, or studios would be like, I'm just going to put out the same like gross crap that we've always put out for years and years. But I feel like we're finally forcing them to make good content with our money and demanding good stuff, which is really good.
Well, it's like KB said. I mean, even like 10 years ago, like I wouldn't even have given like The Conjuring a second look. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, like those movies are fun. Like they're they look like they're in the 70s, and the performances are great, and it's like some of those like one take like camera shots and stuff are just unbelievable. But it's kind of like you said, like Blumhouse, like they're quote unquote small, but like they're backing all of these just hits after hits after hits to where they're now kind of considered a major player, especially in horror.
Sure.
I mean, let us not forget that a few years we got Evil Dead, and that I feel like was such a gateway to like the resurgence of horror on it.
Sure. Yeah, it was actually a well-done remake for once, It's like, oh, this worked.
Dude, that movie, I have never walked out of a movie and like actually stood up and clapped after it was done and like walked out in such a good mood. The only 3 movies that have ever done that for me, well, I don't count Harry Potter. That's another story.
You should.
But they're kind of hard.
Mad Max, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Evil Dead. Evil Dead, I think I ended up seeing 4 or 5 times in the theater.
Well, I think the thing they did smart with that is it wasn't really a remake per se. It was kind of like Sam Raimi's kind of came out and said it's kind of almost like a spiritual sequel kind of a deal.
Sure.
So I think doing that was enough to. Because, like, they can put any story in that universe they want, and I'll watch it, It doesn't have to be Ash. Yeah. Like, I don't care. But, yeah, it was brutal, man. Like, it was like... I was not expecting it to really... Because, the Evil Dead, the first trilogy, of course, like, it's gory, but it's kind of, like, goofy gory, Like, it kind of... when I was watching it as a kid, it almost reminded me of like Pee-wee's Playhouse. Like it was kind of, it's gross, but it's kind of goofy. The remake was not. It was not goofy. So
it rains blood. I mean,
yeah. and some of them,
I definitely think that that movie for me was kind of a precursor to all this box office horror movie we would eventually start getting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was thinking about it too. This is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. I really liked the Friday the 13th remake. I think the Derek Mears or Derek Myers, the guy that played Jason, like he was phenomenal. And to play that part as good, if not better, than Kane Hodder is like a miracle. And I mean, the story was kind of crap. I get it. It was kind of like they combined like 5 movies into one, but just his performance alone was, I think, worth it, but then you also, like, a year later, you had the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which was kind of garbage. So,
trash. Garbage.
So, and it's kind of like, you would think by now New Line would, because they did it, that they would be like, cool, time to cash in on Freddy again, but haven't really heard anything from that, so, but Yeah, I think
I'll be really interested to see where it takes us.
Yeah. Yeah. It could either go like more quality stuff, or like one of y'all were saying earlier, it's going to be the same cutting corners and, we just got to throw a clown in there and we're good to go, just, doing it cheap and lazy and stuff like that. So, you kind of have for a while, like, you have Scream, and then you have like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is also kind of fun. And then you have, even Urban Legend, I think, was pretty decent. But then from there, all the other knockoffs are just like, it just keeps, subtracting and subtracting and subtracting. So,
What, you didn't like Final Destination 14?
I was about to say, listen, guys, I was about to say, can we have a whole episode that we just talk about Final Destination?
Final Destination. The finalist.
Some girl on my feed today, she actually, a mattress came off of a truck in front of her and hit her car.
What?
It was fine because it was a mattress, but still, I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I remember in high school watching, I think maybe 3 of those movies the night before I had to wait for it, cheerleading practice. So I got on the interstate with one of my friends the next morning, and we pulled up behind a log truck.
Oh,
I have never been so scared in my life. It was horrific.
See, I think like that experience right there, that kind of gets into what Scott was talking, like a real horror, like that really could happen. You know what I mean?
Well, I watched The Descent for the first time night before going for the first time.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I never weaseled through little so fast in my life, other than like seeing those alien creatures or whatever they're done. People. Oh.
Creeping yourself out is so much fun, though.
Right? Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is.
I think somebody was about to say something. Okay.
I was gonna say, speaking of Urban Legend, I always check my back seat before I get in my car.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Well, it's anything. Like, even I was watching, I think it was Child's Play 2, and Chucky was in the back and killed that dude. And I was like, I mean, I don't have a doll in my back, but I'm still going to check it.
Right, you're gonna look at like a big axe or Chucky or something.
Maybe that's a good time for another one. Like what are the things from that really impacted us that we're terrified of in the everyday world.
I freaked myself out the other night to the point where I laid in bed until about 2:00 in the morning, thinking about how there was only one entrance and one exit in my apartment. And let me tell you, this is actually going to tie back in with my experience with It. I have now seen that movie probably 6 times.
Oh, is that all?
3 in the theater, and then I was telling Kayla about this earlier, and we got so fucked up over it. I downloaded this horrible torrent of a cam for It because I was like, you know what? I want to fold laundry and I want to watch Pennywise. So I downloaded this thing.
Not enforce piracy, by the way.
No, not at all. This was completely legal. I just found it. It's fine. So anyways, to deter from that little tidbit, I downloaded this horrible cam that had audio that would switch between English, Spanish, I think Russian. And I still watched all of it.
Yeah, you did.
So I've seen it about 6 times, but I got to a point where I was watching it too much that I laid in bed and thought about how there was only one entrance and one exit to my apartment. Because naturally my husband was out of town, and I decided to weird myself out.
Of course.
And think about dying a lot.
Of course.
So it was, it was pretty intense, but I loved it.
Oh, and by the way, FBI, her name is Shmela Schmabcock.
Right. Right.
Shmela.
I don't know how
that's
to
a real
turn a
name.
computer on. I don't know how to turn a computer on.
What are computers even? I don't know.
We can edit that out anyway.
Yeah, hopefully.
I
Right.
know.
But yeah,
I
like
read,
I think Kayla was saying, like we're to the point now, there's almost too much content. You know what I mean? With Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and Shudder, which is 100% horror. I mean, all the stuff's still coming out in the theaters. It's almost like you got to just cut stuff and get try to cover the important stuff. I think it's a testament to the fact that it's like we were saying that it's not a wave. It never really went away. So cool. Does anybody have anything else? We actually went longer than I thought we were going to on the first one.
Because we're having so much fun.
Yes.
Yay!
Right.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I don't know if everyone knows this, but once this the first episode goes live and we post it out on all the podcast stuff, our handle is the same pretty much everywhere. So Music City Horror on Instagram, Music City Horror on Twitter. We have a YouTube, but like you have to be subscribed for like 3 months and get like a million followers, and then you can change that to YouTube/Music City Horror. There will be a Facebook page, Music City Horror, that will go live. Our website is musiccityhorror.com. We will, we're going to have a phone number for you to call, a 615 phone number, which is a Nashville number. So you'll be able to call and leave comments and, if you want to cuss us out, that won't be nice. But if you want to,
maybe we should add in too that you don't have to be in the Nashville area to enjoy it. We accept everybody from everywhere.
We're accepting applications from everywhere.
Yes.
But if you don't have anything nice to say, don't fucking say it.
But we'll put out the phone number probably on the next episode, and if you want to leave show suggestions, comments, critiques, comment about our southern accents. Well, Scott doesn't have one,
right.
Our southern draws.
The southern draws. All that good stuff. All that stuff is going to be live, as soon as we get this first episode out. We kind of wanted to shake the cobwebs off and get familiar, and actually for some of us meet each other, because we've been playing like text tag for a little bit now. So, but so I guess if we don't have anything else, that's it. So this is the first episode. So thank you, hopefully, for tuning in, and I guess hopefully we'll see you next week.
Woot.
Bye.
Bye.